of the City of Palo Alto I'm going to call it to order. Today is Tuesday, April 9th, 2024. Will Madam Clerk please take roll?
Councilmember Lythcott-Haynes.
Here.
Chair Ku.
Here.
Councilmember Tanaka. For the record, 2 present.
Thank you. And we have a quorum, right? Okay, very good. So we'll go to public comments if there are any. Madam Clerk, can you please take a look?
We have no request to speak.
All right, so we'll move on to our action item. We have one, and that is the update, discussion, and potential direction regarding state and federal legislation. Ms. Cotton Gaines? Ms. Mahia Ayun.
All right, so tonight before you, we have our state and federal legislative update, April 2024. So good evening, Policy and Services Committee. Mahealani Ayun, City Clerk, here with Christine Pryor, Deputy City Clerk, as well as Chantal Cotton Gaines, Deputy City Manager, and Carly Shelby from Townsend Public Affairs, who is online this evening. So the item before you is a discussion on the 4 identified bills that we have been tracking and that you could take action on. So with that, I'll hand it over to Carly to briefly go over those bill analysis.
Yeah, thank you so much and good evening, council members. Carly Shelby with Townsend Public Affairs. Great to be with you all this evening. It's a very busy time in Sacramento, so I appreciate the Zoom flexibility. Here to provide some legislative updates, give you a picture as to where we are in the legislative session, where we are with the state budgets, and then bring forward some bills to your attention that we are actively asking for action on or seeing which direction you guys would like us to take on these particular pieces of policy. I also want to note that we are tracking close to 2,000 bills for the city. So while there are a number of bills that may not be on this list today, please know that we're engaged in quite a few coalitions, especially with other local government stakeholders on bills that we know are important to the city. So obviously happy to answer questions outside of the purview of this presentation. Next slide, please.
And for the record, Councilmember Tanaka has joined us.
So just to give you a brief snapshot of what we'll overview today, the first is an overview of the 2024 legislative session. We'll get into our bills with current positions, bills with recommended action, a state budget update, and then an update on our federal advocacy program. Next slide, please. So for the 2024 legislative session, there were over 2,000 bills, new bill vehicles introduced, I should say. There's never a shortage of new policies. As always, members are authorized to gut and amend or significantly amend current bill vehicles into new policies, and that can happen pretty much at any point of the legislative session. So we are actively monitoring quite a few new bill vehicle introductions. We are in the second year of a 2-year session, so come August 31st, the legislature will be adjourned for its 2-year session. Members will be likely campaigning prior to the November election, which is why it kind of ends a little earlier on the second year of the 2-year session. And then right now we're in the midst of policy committees. So policy committees are where we see the most policy specific amendments come out of committees before they move on to their fiscal committees for consideration of only their fiscal impact on the state. And then they move to the floor before crossing over to the second house and essentially starting the process all over again. The state budget must be passed by the legislature by June 15th and signed into law July 1st. These are constitutional deadlines. They do not necessarily mean that the budget will be completed by this point. We know that this is, so that the legislature can essentially continue to get paid. So because we're experiencing a tough budget year, we anticipate that the budget negotiation process will continue well on into likely even August. And then, as I said before, the legislature adjourns August 31st. The governor then has a full month to sign or veto bills that make it to his desk. So lots of time for action, but as always, things move very quickly here in the Capitol. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of an overview of some of the major legislative themes we've seen emerge this particular session. Again, not all of the bills that we touch on today will touch on all of these categories, but we are very active in all of these categories as it pertains to the city of Palo Alto and local government direction adjacent bills. So the first is housing production accountability. As we've seen throughout the last few years, the focus was really on upzoning, streamlining reforms, zoning reforms, and now we're seeing a lot of focus on housing production accountability. You know, we're coming to the end of this RENA cycle. We're looking forward to the next one. Legislators are starting to see how they can mandate these development standards, how we look into the future, how we have additional oversights, both not on local governments, but on HCD. So a lot of interesting bills emerging from this space. Then we have retail theft prevention, Proposition 47 reforms and the uptick in retail related thefts and organized grand thefts have really come to the focus of the legislature. There are a ton of bills that propose major both constitutional and statutory changes to prevent these thefts and add additional tools to law enforcement's toolboxes. Then we have statewide and regional bonds. As we've seen in the past budget cycle, the governor has predicated portions of the state's budget on the passage of a climate bond. We also have seen a housing bond that we're very actively engaged with. A school facilities bond, and then we also have regional bonds that would impact the city of Palo Alto, such as the BAFA bond, which is approximately $10 to $20 billion for affordable housing production. We've seen some additional legislation emerge in that space as well. And then, as always, we see a ton of environmental quality bills. One that we'll touch on today has to deal with PFAS remediation and eliminating those forever chemicals that appear in our public systems and water supplies. And then energy and utilities has been a really hot topic this year, which is especially salient to the city of Palo Alto as a manager of all of its in-house suite of utilities. And so next slide, please. So this is our priority legislation with current position. We have one bill now. It's Senate Bill 1193 by Senator Menjivar. This phases out the sale and use of leaded airplane fuel in California airports. We see this as likely to result in improved airplane emissions and health impacts associated with flight paths over the city, which we know there are major airports that have airplanes that fly over Palo Alto directly. And we see this as aligning with the city's legislative platform to protect public health. We have a support position. Next slide, please. Now we're moving on to priority legislation with recommended positions. AB 2485 by Assemblymember Carrillo is an interesting bill. This bill enhances transparency in HCD's regional housing needs calculations process by creating an advisory panel to oversee how HCD does its methodologies and calculations, and then requires them to publish these methodologies used on HCD's website. And so the advisory panel is set to consist of local government stakeholders, COG and MPO stakeholders. We have Bureau of Statistics and population experts, just to ensure that people are making the right determinations as it pertains to RENA allocations at both the MPO and local levels. We see this as increasing transparency for how HCD calculates its RENA numbers, and could offer additional clarity and dialogue between HCD, the city, and ABAG. And we are recommending a support position on this. The next bill that we have a recommended position on is Senate Bill 1210 by Senator Skinner. And this prohibits utility hookup fees from exceeding 1% of the reported building permit value of the unit for new housing construction. This raises some red flags for us just because we know that Palo Alto provides this full suite of municipally owned utilities to its residents. This could significantly impact the revenues and service quality long-term, should the city see any dip in revenues pertaining to this new hookup fee. We have new housing units coming online, and if we're capping the cost of this hookup fee from exceeding this amount, we're really capping ourselves in terms of our revenue potential. So we are recommending an opposed position. We know that this aligns with that of additional local governments and the California Special Districts Association as well. And then next slide, please. Senate Bill 903 by Senator Skinner. This is a pretty aggressive PFAS phase out bill, which we know has been a hot topic for local governments up and down the states. This phases out forever chemicals by prohibiting the manufacture, distribution, or sale of any product that contains intentionally added PFAS. So the key word there is intentional. If you are somebody that manufactures products that includes PFAS, you need to prove to the Department of Toxic Substance Control that you cannot avoid using PFAS in that product. And then they would have to post that product on their website, determine how and when they're going to phase out the use of PFAS in that product. And it also establishes civil penalties for that and would deposit those civil penalties into an account for additional PFAS remediation practices. We see this as reducing the presence of forever chemicals in public water supplies. We know that these chemicals have been present in pregnant women and children everywhere, and they have negative health impacts. So we are recommending a support position on this. And then next bill, Senate Bill 915 by Senator Cortese has to do with the new emergence of self-driving autonomous vehicles. We know that Palo Alto is proximate to the tech sector, to all of these cities. I actually don't know if you guys have agreements in place yet to have these self-driving vehicles like Cruise and Waymo in your city. But this grants local authority over the operations and regulations for autonomous self-driving vehicles. Right now, there really isn't a local authority or the ability for you guys to all exercise some control over the presence and how these vehicles operate in the city. And this says, hey, you guys are cool to do this, but make sure that your city outlines what they want to see in terms of this rollout. So we see this as a really positive bill. We see this as offering the city more local control over these operations and to protect the public safety. We know that there have been some incidents throughout the years with these self-driving vehicles. So we are recommending a support position. And then next slide, please. Just quickly on the state budget update, we understand that the situation is not improving. And that's not to say that it can't once we see additional tax receipts, but as you'll recall, on January 10th, the governor released his preliminary budget proposal, which projected around a $38 billion deficit. The LAO, which is the Legislative Analyst's Office and is this nonpartisan kind of like watchdog over the Department of Finance, calculated its own deficit numbers and said that it was much higher and could be around 70 billion. Just last week, legislative leaders put forward an early action proposal to mitigate a portion of the deficit. So their proposal solves a $17 billion budget problem, but we anticipate that the budget problem that they need to solve after this is about $30 billion. So that bill will be moving through the process now. It does not include some of our key accounts. So when we're talking about housing, homelessness, transportation funding, those key accounts are going to be figured out probably at a later date. There's still going to have to be a long and hard negotiation process between the governor's office, between the Assembly and the Senate to see what the final outcome is. We are also pending our May revision to see how April tax receipts turned out. And as I said, the Budget Act must be passed by June 15th. So we'll see a quicker turnaround there, but we're anticipating that these negotiations will continue long into probably August. We are working with city staff to identify funding priorities in case budget opportunities arise. We have been told by the Assembly and Senate budget staff that they are not doing budget earmarks requests this year, but that could change. So we're positioning ourselves in case things turn into a greater picture. Next slide, please. And then just getting into our federal appropriations update on the funding side, the fiscal year 2024 appropriations process was finalized a couple weeks ago. Our earmark for the Buena Vista Mobile Home Park upgrades totaling $850,000 and was sponsored by Congresswoman Eshoo was included in that package, which was signed into law by President Biden on March 9th. So those funds will be delivered to the Santa Clara Valley Housing Authority pretty soon here. And then in terms of the 2025 appropriations process, we are submitting 2 earmark requests to Senator Padilla and Butler and Representative Eshoo. This includes the fire station 4 upgrades totaling $3 million and the Palo Alto intermodal station totaling $750,000. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, so we can discuss any questions that the committee may have. Let us know if you have any issues with these 4 bills that do align with our legislative guidelines. And if not, we could just move forward with the letters and incorporate any comments into the letters. We'd like to confirm your support. And we can also discuss and confirm the monitoring list and if there's any changes or additions to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Shelby. We know it's a busy season for you. Appreciate your diligence with us. Just a quick question for our city clerk. You just referenced the letters. Have we received the letters in our packet?
These are, hello, Chantel Cotton Gaines, Deputy City Manager, supporting Ms. Ayun with this item this evening. The 4 bills that are on the screen right now, we put analyses in your staff report for them from Townsend. And what we're proposing is these fall within our legislative guidelines for us to take the positions that are stated. So we wanted to have a discussion here and see if there were any issues with taking these positions. If there are no issues here at committee, we'll go ahead and do that. There doesn't need to be an action from the committee, but if you want to do something different, we can push this to council. We can do a variety of things as the committee sees fit.
Okay, thank you. Got it. I had read those memos. I thought you were saying we had the draft letter in front of us. Okay. My questions are on packet page 9, Ms. Shelby, you refer to AB 2430 by Alvarez, and there's simply a term here that I don't understand. I'm wondering if you could explain it to me, please. Prohibits local governments from charging monitoring fees on developments that include 100% affordability component, et cetera. I'm just not clear on what those monitoring fees are.
Yeah, so a monitoring fee is essentially a fee charged by a city to oversee and ensure that the project has continued affordability of deed restricted affordable units, and those projects have 100% affordable housing components to them. So it's essentially a, hey, we're watching you fee, don't increase the price above what we've agreed on in terms of affordability.
Got it. Thank you. And my other question is regarding the federal appropriations. I am intrigued by what gets put in the bucket for federal help. For example, the Buena Vista Mobile Home Park, the various renovations, upgrades, electrification that needs to happen there feels like a very different project to me than our fire station number 4. And then the intermodal station is in its own category as well. I'd love to know why fire station number 4 made the cut. We're a city with 5 fire stations. It doesn't strike me as a project that would necessarily garner interest from our federal representatives. And so I'd just love to know how do we decide we're going to go for it with that one versus other things that we feel, don't merit that degree of support.
I can take the first crack at this, and Ms. Shelby, feel free to add on. The federal earmarks process really needs to show support from the local agency in the sense of some sort of action that's been taken by the elected body. So that is the city council in our case, or the housing authority, for example, their board related to Buena Vista. And it has to be a project that's pretty far along in order to be really marketable for some of the funding that they'll be giving for the earmarks. So we really look at the variety of projects that sort of meet that cross-referencing of things and see which one seems really competitive that we can push forward. We don't always hit the mark, so if there are suggestions for other projects, please do share that with us as staff and as well as Townsend. But with the timelines, we typically want to make sure that we have one that is really ready to go for the most part.
Great, thank you. Those are all my questions. I will say that I am in favor of moving forward with the recommended action on that set of 4 bills. So when we get to that point, I am in favor of that. Thank you.
Councilmember Tanaka?
Yeah, thank you. So let's see here. So on packet page 7, the self-driving vehicles, I think that I'm supportive of that. I actually would like for us to, in general, support self-driving vehicles, especially trucking, because you look at the number of deaths, especially for males under 30. It's one of the leading causes of death is driving, and self-driving, for most part, has had a lower fatality rate. So I think we could do that. I think really encouraging this technology really would be good for society. And Palo Alto, given that we're a birthplace of a lot of technologies, I think it'd be great if we can be the first to support this. So definitely support what you guys have there right now. I didn't see your support or recommendation of support on the retail theft. And it seems to be a bit of a problem, not more than a bit of a problem, but actually a rather large problem. And so I guess why not support that? So this was, I forgot, it was on the slides. The slide,
Councilmember, was it this slide?
oh yeah, it was on the first slide, yeah. So retail theft prevention. I think we should also support that, but maybe, I don't know if maybe Carly, you can say more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. This is a very hot topic this year. A lot of the bills that we've seen be amended with implementing language honestly happened within the last week or so. So we're really starting to see which bills are moving, which bills are starting to get the support from coalitions from the governor's office, from leadership, and from other local government stakeholders. So we can absolutely bring additional bills to the city for consideration. We know that this aligns with the legislative platform. So yes, we will start getting engaged with these now that we have these new amendments and new language moving forward.
Is there a bill right now that's pending that we could support? I didn't see it on the list here, but maybe.
It's under the monitoring. There's one that is SB 22 that is looking to do some reforms to Prop 47. And then there was another one that I am not remembering.
What page was that on?
That's on packet page 10 in the middle, public safety, SB 22.
SB 22. Oh yeah, both of them, both SB 22 and SB 905, both sound, because I don't know if you guys know, but I used to be in the retail industry for many, many years, and retailers are on these razor thin margins, like just 1 or 2%, maybe sometimes 3%. And so when people just go in these stores and rob them like crazy, it really puts a big burden. And then these guys shut down, and then we don't have services in our city. So I think definitely, yeah, thank you, Chair, for mentioning these. I think these would be good ones for us to support. Yeah, so both SB 22. So SB 22 is basically make it easier for us to prosecute these crimes. Is that correct?
No, it's
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead,
sorry.
Carly. I'm sorry.
SB 22 is one of a couple of bills here that would make revisions to Proposition 47 related to theft prosecution. So this has many elements to it, a number of which have to do with aggregating theft to make it easier to prosecute theft crimes. And then it also has to do with the carrying and furnishing of fentanyl. So
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I'm totally in support of that then. And then I think also for SB 905, I mean, I was in San Francisco a while back and my car window got smashed and lost my laptop, my iPad, all that kind of stuff. So definitely seems like, and I couldn't even get the police to show up. It was crazy. They didn't want to show up. They said, no, don't need to show up for that. Yeah, I think, so I guess this one makes it easier to prosecute. Is that right?
yeah.
So I'm totally in favor of SB 22 and 905. Okay, and then on the SB 1210, the Skinner one. You know, I understand the city needs to get funded and whatnot, but I would either want this one to be monitor or perhaps even support. And the reason why is because I think it's the same person, right? It's the ratepayers or it's the people that are here in the city. And if we need extra funds, we should just tax people versus we have this roundabout way where we charge higher for utilities to pay for our services. But I think having a more direct connection is better, it's more transparent. So I wouldn't support opposing the SB 1210. Okay, and then let's see. And then where is funding for the Chaucer Bridge to replace it so that we don't have the flooding every year?
Yes, we have brought this project forward to our members over the past budget cycle. Unfortunately, it's appearing that there are not going to be opportunities for earmarks this particular funding cycle. However, we are flagging that as an item that should be prioritized for funding, and we are actively looking for grant funding opportunities within our grants unit for that particular project.
Because it's something we've known about for over a decade now, and for us to not get this fixed is inexcusable. Because every year it's gone so bad now. We park a what do you call those diggers? Not a crane, but it's like one of those big scoopers, like the. But anyways, it's gone so bad we have to park a big scooper there to clean out the bridge so it doesn't flood our community, and it seems so backwards, right? We should just replace it, make the hole bigger so it doesn't clog up every year. And so I hear a lot of excuses all the time about why we can't do it, but it just seems like this should be a priority. Every year I have office hours with people who are worried about their house getting flooded. And so I think this really needs to be a priority for us to get this fixed. It's the duty of our government is to make sure people feel safe, and to have people live in fear every year that the house can get flooded again. It's not good. I mean, I talked to one person where after last year's flooding, they couldn't get flood insurance anymore. It was crazy, right? Or that the rate's going to go up a lot. So I don't, for a city like ours, for something as simple, we know the problem, and for us not to fix it, and for that to go on for decades is not right. We need to fix it. So okay. Anyways, I think my feelings are probably hurt here. Okay, and then so you talked about like the budget shortfalls here, and so we have a really big shortfall. So where do we anticipate us losing money from the state?
That's
I mean, our city directly. Like what is
yeah.
that?
That's a great question, council member. I will say that at this point, we don't yet know. Those key funding pots that have to do with funding related to active transportation planning, housing and homelessness dollars, and those pots that directly affect local governments are still up in the air in terms of their negotiations process. So we won't have a clearer picture as to how this will directly impact the city until likely later this summer, honestly, because we anticipate these negotiations to continue.
Okay. How much funding do we get from the state?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I know that there are a number of ways that you can apply or directly receive funding from the state. We can work with our grants team to try to get you a ballpark number, but I know that it's in the likely tens of millions of dollars in terms of our annual grants and direct and indirect allocations.
Does staff know how much?
Not off the top of my head, we can get that information. I believe we had some version of it last year when we were discussing the budget. So if we can't find it today, we'll share it with the committee thereafter.
Okay, I think that'll be great because, how much lower is the total budget this year for the state, roughly?
It's not necessarily lower per se. The total spending for last year's budget hovered, I believe, at around 360 million, and I believe that this budget proposes a couple tens of millions of dollars below that. Although
Wait a
that's
second,
probably more
the
than-
state budget is only 360 million?
I mean billion. Sorry.
Oh, okay, okay. I was gonna say,
Sorry.
okay,
Yeah.
I was.
No.
Okay.
Yes, so I think what they're negotiating right now is something to the tune of close to tens of billions of dollars below that in order to support kind of our baseline spending and eliminate some of those additive multi-year additions that we've seen.
Okay, so if it's like 360 billion and there's 73 billion, it says on this packet page 11, 73 billion shortfall. So that's a fairly like 30% or so, like a pretty substantial haircut, right, to the budget. So if we do get tens of millions of dollars from the state, then that probably means something like, if it's proportional, which it may not be, we would lose something like $6 million, $7 million. Does that sound about right? Does staff know?
I wouldn't feel comfortable making a swag. I'd rather get the exact information,
Okay.
especially as we go into our own budget process. I'd rather you have the accurate numbers.
Okay. Yeah, me
My
too.
assumption of the funding from the state is it's not just grants. And so I would like to have a comprehensive answer for you, and we'll share it when we have it.
Okay, but I'm just thinking if the amount we get is proportionally less, which, it probably is, or perhaps maybe we'll get even less than that, or our cut would be even bigger because there's a perception that Paul's is a wealthy city and we could do with less. So you can imagine that when they spread the pain across the different cities, some cities like us might get even hit harder. And I guess my question to staff is, if that does happen, are we prepared? I mean, do we have room in our budget? I know we're already projecting deficit every year for the next 5 years. So if we lose even more money, are we able to handle that?
I think that would be a question that we would want to ask the finance committee, right? I
Okay,
mean,
well,
they're going through the budgets right
Okay,
now,
that's
which is
true.
why
That's true. Okay.
that's something that they should consider for sure, right?
Yeah. Okay, that's a
Um,
good point. So maybe
Okay.
this could be, these kind of projections could be fed to first of all, what proportion of the state budget is being cut, and then what proportion of our budget comes from the state, both in grants and other sources. So we could kind of take a swag at the impact to our city. Okay, and let's see. And then are we trying to get money from the feds to help pay for some of these grade separations? Like how are we doing on that?
Yes, I believe the team, and I don't have this information right in front of me now, I'll have to circle in with Alex, but I believe the team has applied for a number of grade sub related programs, including the infra grant. So I will make a note to check in with Alex and the team to see the status of those programs. But I know that those were top priority for our grant funding activities.
Okay, great. And what about pushing for, we have this kind of like blue state tax penalty thing where I think this happened during the Trump administration, and unfortunately Biden never really kind of overturned it. Are we going to try to get that rectified somehow so that we're not unfairly penalized? I think what happened is in high tax states like California, there's a cap on how much deduction. It's called SALT, right? Isn't it called SALT?
Mhm.
So when are we going to get rid of the salt issue here? Or can
That's
we
a good
push for that?
question. Yeah, I believe that the House voted on a salt expansion bill earlier this year, and they actually blocked the progression of that bill. So as it stands, there is no expansion, but it is still the same as it stood years prior, is my understanding.
Okay, well, obviously, given we're a high-tax city, high-tax state, we definitely want to be pushing for making it more fair and equitable. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Lithcott Haynes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One more thing. I wanted to register my enthusiasm for Senate Bill 1212, which bars hedge funds and other corporate investment entities from buying single-family homes in California. There's no question that as single-family homes in California have become attractive to the investment community, this has helped drive the cost of homes in California upward. And I think we have an interest as a community in people buying homes who actually intend to live in the homes. It's essential for the vitality of our neighborhoods and schools and retail that humans buy homes and live in them. And it's sort of an obvious point. But I am very concerned about the extent to which our real estate has become such an attractive commodity and investment. I think it is something we have to actively counteract, which is why I'm in favor of this bill.
Thank you. Councilmember Tanaka?
So I don't know a lot about 1212, but I guess I kind of see a different perspective, and so I could be kind of educated about maybe if this perspective is right or wrong. But I do think that the advantage of having, whether it's a hedge fund or corporate investment entity, is that they could get the economies of scale that you can't get as like a mom and pop. Because as a mom and pop, it's very hard to get a good deal on a handyman, or I mean, there's all this kind of scales economy where if you have multiple units, it's a lot cheaper. So one advantage of having either a hedge fund or corporate entity is owning lots of these properties, is that you get these economies of scale that's impossible for small landlords are able to get. And thus, like you can think about the marketing costs, you can think about the turnover, you can think about all the costs involved. So my fear of this is that I think it could drive the rent up for people, right? And I think you're thinking about it from the homeowner point of view, but I think the people that need the most help actually are the people renting. The homeowners generally are better off than renters. And so I think actually, I think we would want to oppose this because economically, I think this, I think this would actually benefit especially first-time renters, because it would give a lower cost basis for potential renters to get into properties versus if it's just individual landlords. I think. Anyways, that's what I'm thinking, so I'm not sure. So anyways, just give my 2 cents there.
Okay, I have a few questions. For the most part, the 4 bills that SB 1210, AB 2485, SB 903, and SB 915, I agree with the recommendations. My only concerns are oftentimes embedded language that changes things a little bit. For example, like SB 10, which had embedded language in there that spoke about a 2/3 of a council can vote to eliminate a initiative, so that's a big people's initiative. So I don't want stuff like that embedded. So if TPA, if they're looking at this and they see language in there that could have another meaning, then please make sure that we know about it. But for the most part, these 4 bills, I went through and read the whole thing, so they look okay to to what support and oppose based on the recommendations there. In terms of some of the bills that are being monitored, yes, I would like to see that SB 22 and SB 905 come back to us sooner for us to examine the language in there. But for the most part, anything that reforms Proposition 47, I think that is something good to move forward on. But I would love to see or understand why is it in the monitoring list. Ms. Shelby, can you give us an idea of why those are monitoring, or is it staff that I should be asking the question to? Ms. Shelby?
Oh, yeah, no, these were late breaking bills that we were monitoring to see if they had additional amendments that we were anticipating that could potentially change the course of the bill. So given the interest in Prop 47 and retail theft measures that we know have recently been amended and are moving through the process, we can take a closer eye at those and bring forward additional recommendations or policy letters to you all.
That'll be great. Thank you so much. And let me see here. I have a question mark next to SB 1116. Oh, never mind. I understood that one. It's SB 955, Sayartos, that I wasn't quite understanding what it means here.
Oh, yeah, so this is an interesting bill that would require the governor's Office of Planning and Research to establish the Infrastructure Gap Fund Program to provide cities and other local agencies the opportunity to fund the last 20% of an almost funded project. So this is pending language to determine what the appropriate funding mechanism would be from the state budget. But the goal of this bill is to essentially establish another funding and financing tool for local governments that have just almost the entirety of a project funded.
And so the state would step in at that point and provide that funding. Is that what I understood you to say?
Yes.
Okay, I see. That's very interesting. And I would tend to agree with Councilmember Lithcott-Hames about SB 1212. It'd be one thing if these hedge funds and corporate investment entities comes in and purchases single-family homes, which, by the way, is a very desirable product because of the space that it allows. They would actually be changing it over to market rent or luxury rents. You know, that takes it off the housing market also, and goodness knows they could be short-term rentals or something else. So I would tend to agree with Councilmember Lithcott-Hames. I also sent about, I see you nodding. Yeah, I try to examine the 2,124 bills before I came tonight, but I couldn't do that. So I started with my 23. So I sent it to you, but I'll be working on more of them. I wanted to ask about SB 951, AB 2560, SB 1077, and SB 1092. Those ones all affect coastal cities. When we're here around the bay, does that apply to us as well? I was just kind of trying to understand, because obviously they're trying to open all the coastal cities to.
Yeah.
So it does open us, it does.
No, it does not. For the most part, these bills are trying to rectify some cases wherein the Coastal Commission has been fighting with HCD on how they see development permits to go through their processing. So cities that are along the coastal zone and are subject to coastal development permits and have to plan within their LCPs to accommodate additional development are sometimes subject to discrepancies between what the Coastal Commission views as development projects that can move forward versus what HCD views as housing law.
But they don't affect Palo Alto along the bay or like East Palo Alto, all the cities along the bay.
For the most part, no. Senate Bill 951 had a provision that would have rezoned the San Francisco Bay Area Peninsula to exclude it from the coastal zone, but those amendments have since been rescinded, and the Coastal Commission now has a neutral position with it. So for the most part, I would not flag these bills as directly impacting the city.
Okay, very good. That's good to know. So we have, you mentioned the Bay Area Housing, what's the last two letters stand for? Something Act. Financing Authority. So there is a bond, thank you, Councilmember. There is a bond that is going to support them, or that they are putting forward in the November ballot. And did you say that was 10 million?
So the regional bond measure is set to be between 10 to 20 billion.
10 to 20 billion, right? Okay, billion. And that is basically something that is going to be, property owners are going to be paying through their property tax and as an assessment, right? To fund this bond.
I don't have all of the details for the funding mechanism in front of me, but I imagine that it's largely property related. So I can get you a more detailed analysis of this bond measure.
Right, I think that would be great. And so AB 1657 by Wix is also another bond for about 10 billion? Or is this also going to be on the November ballot?
So at this point, we don't yet know. As you know, Proposition 1, which was the behavioral health infrastructure bond on the March primary ballot, passed by a slimmer margin than I think its proponents were anticipating. So there is still negotiations with leadership and within the legislature as to if they want to put a bond on the November ballot, if they want to put multiple bonds on there, and kind of how they want to structure it given the reaction from voters this past session. So they will have until June 27th. That's the deadline to place measures on the November ballot, because you need to have at least 131 days for the Secretary of State to process ballots. So more to come, but right now we don't yet know how that will play out, but we're engaged in those conversations.
And it'll be good to know also on this particular one, if it will affect taxpayers or property owners, increased property tax bills with assessments. So I think that's another thing that would be good to know. Let me see here. I think that's about it. So I would, thank you, Ms. Shelby. So I would propose that, since I hear that there might not be all of us agreeing to the 4 bills with the recommendation, right, Councilmember Tanaka, maybe we'll just go one by one and vote on it so that we can kind of make it clear. So on SB 1210, I would move to, do you want to move it, Council? I would move to accept staff's recommendation to oppose.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lithcott-Hames,
Yes.
Chair Ku,
Yes.
Councilmember Tanaka,
No.
motion carries.
Okay, and then we'll move to, would anybody like to move AB 2485? I'll move it. Oh, Councilmember Lithcott-Hames.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the staff recommendation to support AB 2485.
A second.
Councilmember Lithcott-Hames,
Yes.
Councilmember Ku,
Yes.
Councilmember Tanaka,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, well, it's not on this list, but I want to move,
We're still on the 4,
oh, okay,
the
then,
one that with recommended action. Let's finish those
okay,
ones
okay, sure.
first.
Sorry, go
Okay,
ahead.
I'll move to, I move the staff recommendation to support SB 903 on PFAS.
second,
Councilmember Lipcott Haynes,
Yes,
Councilmember Ku,
yes.
Councilmember Tanaka,
Yes,
motion carries.
Um,
I move to support the staff recommendation. Sorry, I get tired late at night. It's not that late. I move that we adopt the staff recommendation to support SB 915, granting local authority over the operations and regulations for autonomous self-driving vehicles.
I'll second,
Councilmember Lipcott Haynes,
Yes.
Chair Ku,
yes.
Councilmember Tanaka,
yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
If I can make a suggestion or request, I'm not sure which category it falls into right now. Since the committee has unanimously supported 3 of the positions, for the first one where it was not unanimous, can we move that one to the monitoring list? It seemed like there was interest in keeping track of the bill, but maybe not taking a position on it right now. Part of the reason I'm asking that is your recommendations for actions can go on consent. With your very full calendars, that seems like it may be advantageous for the full council. But if we have this one that's not unanimous, then this whole item goes on to the action calendar. And it seems like the committee's okay as long as we keep track of this bill. So I'm just offering that if there's interest in the first one that wasn't unanimous, to just move that to the monitoring list and not take action right now. So I'll offer that to the committee.
I would be open to that, because I certainly don't want only one bill to be heard at action calendar, to be put on the action calendar. Maybe when there's more accumulated, then we can get it on the action calendar. What do you, your comments, Councilmember Lithcott James? Okay,
I'm fine with that.
okay. Thank you, Councilmember Tanaka. So, yes, thank you for the suggestion. Councilmember Tanaka, you had,
Oh, yeah, it's actually your suggestion. So it's SB 22 and SB 905. I'd like to make a motion for that. Oh, to support.
I just want to make sure that I want to make sure to know more about it. If there's any, I guess I want to know the whole analysis that they do. Ms. Shelby, is there anything we should be concerned about with SB 22 and SB 905?
No, what I will note though is that, like I said, a lot of these bills that pertain to retail theft, prevention, have late breaking developments that we can capture within a more comprehensive analysis if that offers a better picture. As of this point, I would not categorize Senate Bill 22 as being the leading measure of the pack, just because of recent developments that we've seen just this week. So our staff can provide you all with more information and updated memo on these measures, just to kind of paint a better picture, if that is of interest.
Um,
And I have a question.
Councilmember Lithcott James, do you have any comments? If that's something that we want to monitor a little bit more with all of the amendments that they continuously to have while they're negotiating on these bills? Or do you want to?
I'm fine with that.
So Councilmember Tanaka, I would like to ask that you consider letting us monitoring it a little bit more.
Yeah, it looks like I don't have support, so that's fine.
Thank you.
And if I can add a little context to that as well, there is something in our legislative guidelines which will allow us to act on a bill on this topic. I'll just read it just for the committee. So one of the items in the public safety section is supporting legislation that provides for greater public safety support resources especially related to organized retail theft operations. So I think this one will depend on the actual bill, how far it goes into the further prosecuting, et cetera, versus just supporting our financial interest and making sure we're supporting the retail establishments. But I think that having it on the monitor list does give us a little bit of flexibility there.
Yes, Councilmember Tanaka.
So AB 2309, Carly, can you explain a little bit more what that is for and what it's about?
Yeah, okay, so this bill would allow a general law or charter city attorney to prosecute misdemeanors committed within the city. So this authority is currently vested within the Attorney General's office and the DA's office. So this offers just additional flexibility and authority to prosecute those misdemeanor kind of more minor crimes. And I believe that this is in an attempt to kind of spread the jurisdictional authority across all branches of the legal arm here to allow for kind of more collaboration between these different legal entities.
Does our city attorney have a perspective?
So I saw the bill. I have not reviewed it in detail and haven't discussed it with district attorney staff. Currently, this is work that is done by the district attorney's office, and it is it's an intense work stream that's coordinated with the Superior Court, and the city attorney's responsibility is limited to misdemeanors that are locally adopted. So city misdemeanors, which we do have a few, and occasionally we do appear as prosecutors of those matters. But all of the state level penal code misdemeanors are prosecuted by the district attorney's office. And this is a major reallocation of work. And frankly, in our current setup, we are not resourced for this. So that would be a significant change if this were to become the norm.
Okay. I think one of the things I just want to mention is that obviously, funding is always a big matter for us. We have a lot of big projects here. And so I want to ask our lobbyists to continue the good work that you're doing in making sure that we get the funding for a lot of our projects here. I think another thing to think about is our electric grid expansion and modernization. Councilmember Tanaka already talked about grade separation. And of course, there's the, to mitigate flooding, our bridges. And I know that earmark funding requires for the project to be ready to go. So there's just so many agencies when it comes to this line where to mitigate flooding and to change the bridge. There's just a lot of agencies to work with. So the hurdles are a little bit more in order to get earmark funding. But if there's others, that'll be great. I think we also want to make sure that we address wildland fires. So emergency management funding along with police and fire. I think that's about all I have. But thank you for supporting us. And if there's any other comments by my colleagues, go ahead. If not, then do you have anything to add, Ms. Ayung?
Nope, that is it.
Did we?
Councilmember Ku, would it be okay if we got a new motion that moves SB 1210 to the monitoring list?
Oh, we need a motion for that. Okay, thank you.
I move to transfer SB 1220 to the monitor list.
1210.
1210.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Lithcott Haynes.
Yes.
Chair Ku,
Yes.
Councilmember Tanaka.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you for reminding us, Madam Clerk. Also, I was just, Councilmember Lithcott Haynes reminded me about public comments. Did we do that?
We don't have any requests to speak.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. All right. If there's no other comments or thoughts from staff,
I apologize again, Chair Ku. Were there any bills that the committee wanted to add to the monitoring list?
so,
The list that you had sent to staff?
yeah. Oh, did you want me to give, it's a long list. Okay. I can say it or just,
You can
so I did
State
send.
them for the record. You
For
can
the-
just state them for the record and then we can.
Oh, okay. Are you ready? SB 1951, SB 968, SB 1037, SB 1159. Oh, you have it?
Yes, one moment, please.
Is that all 23? It looks like it. Okay,
And on those, as we've usually remind the committee, Townsend Public Affairs will look at the bills and see their applicability to Palo Alto. So the ones that have less applicability or may not be moving may get deprioritized on the monitoring list, but this is a great start for them to do the work.
exactly. Thank you very much. And thank you, Madam Clerk, for bringing that up. And if there's nothing else, I will close this item number 1. And we'll go to Ms. Cotton Gaines about future meetings and agenda.
Thank you. As you are doing work related to the city auditor, we anticipate that your next meeting will potentially have some audit reports if the timing lines up. So that is still up in the air. And we also have the council referral related to the Public Art Commission, thinking about the respective roles of the commission staff, stakeholders, and the council. That's something that came from the city council in December. So those are the items that are right now planned for the May meeting.
Thank you. All right. And with that, I will adjourn our meeting. Thank you.